Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to get through this thing called life. Electric word, life, it means forever, and that's a mighty long time. But I'm here to tell you, there's something else. The afterworld. A world of never-ending happiness. You can always see the sun, day or night. So when you call up that shrink in Beverly Hills, you know the one. Doctor, everything will be alright. Instead of asking him how much of your time is left, ask him how much of your mind, baby. Cause in this life, things are much harder than in the afterworld. This life, you're on your own. And if the elevator tries to break you down, go crazy. Punch a higher floor. You're living here. Take a look around. At least you got friends. I call my old lady for a friendly word. She picked up the phone, dropped it on the floor. It's all I heard. I'm not gonna let the elevator break us down. Oh no, let's go crazy. Let's get nuts. Let's look for the purple banana. Let's go! I'm excited. Don't know why. Maybe it's 'cause we're all gonna die. When we do, what's it all for?
This recording is going to be a lot more different than what I've done the past couple of times. To address the elephant in the room, as one might say, a few days ago, the wrestling world lost Joni Laurer, aka Chyna. they haven't really officially worded how she passed away, but with her history and her addictions and her demons, it's very safe to say it was an overdose. And she has been suffering with depression for a very, very long time. I know people are used to me who tune in being loud and swearing and being off the handle, but with all of the past wrestling deaths that we've had in the past year or so, this one hit me a little hard. It's not because I was the biggest Chyna fan. When I first started watching back in around 97, 98, she was prominent in that time. It hits me hard on the circumstances. Growing up in a family where a lot of people struggled with addiction and depression and even anxiety at times, this one just kind of hits a little harder than when, say, Macho Man or Dusty or Roddy Piper died, just because of how it all went down. And despite what she had gone through in her life, her troubles, her demons, as someone might say, she was still a person. She was still a human being. And I know some might say, well, the way she went, it's not as depressing, it's her own fault. But still, it's a loss of a life, and that's never anything to take lightly. I won't focus on what was her downfall and what the past couple years of her life had been. I'm going to try and focus on the more positives. And even before I send this recording to the girls, I'm asking Julie. I know the running gag is you guys play Finn Balor's music on all my recordings, but for this one, please don't play any music. The word pioneer has been thrown out for the past couple of days, and it's a overused word, but it is quite the word to sum her up. She was the first woman to get in the ring with men and prove that the girls could play ball as well. She was the first woman to hold the Intercontinental title. She was the first woman to wrestle in the Royal Rumble, and she actually did it twice. And she was the first woman to participate in King of the Ring. And while no one has ever done it since then, it is still a big, big deal, because she was the one that showed up and said, hey, women can do this too. Did you all forget? Because when she came around, they had, Sunny? They had Terry Runnels, who I know Terry, after the fact, I think she maybe got in the ring and had a spat once or twice after, but it was when Chyna emerged that the women's division kind of started going, oh yeah, we can do this too. And people will say that, Fabulous Moolah and Mae Young, they were the pioneers. And yes, they were the ones that started it all. But you tend to forget that after about the early 90s, probably after Alundra Blaze threw the title in the trash can, that all kind of went out the window, and women were just seen as valets from then on end. And it was when Chyna appeared, and when Chyna started gaining prominence in the company, and she started making a name for herself, that people started looking and going, all right, women can definitely play with the big boys. We forgot. Our apologies. And it's almost daring for me to say, but if we didn't have Chyna in the company, we wouldn't have who we have today in the likes of Sasha Banks and Charlotte, and Becky Lynch and Bayley. We definitely wouldn't have had the era where Trish Stratus and Lita were in the top of the company for the women's division. So when people throw out the word pioneer, yes, I do say very, very much so that she was a pioneer. As for her now up in the air status of whether she will make the Hall of Fame this year or not, I do say they will. It's a little sad it has to be post-mortem, but she does deserve her spot in the Hall of Fame, and people argue with her past and what she's done, her activity in the adult industry. I would just like to point out that Sunny's in there. Sunny's in the Hall of Fame, and she is currently an active adult entertainer. So to hear that is honestly ludicrous. This is also the same Hall of Fame that hosts Drew Carey and Donald Trump, so Just putting that out there. I do understand why the WWE has been hesitant to put her in the Hall of Fame, because they do run the risk of an induced Chyna walking onto the stage, belligerent, just spouting profanities and running Triple H and Stephanie and Vince's names through the dirt. So I do get it. And it's a little depressing to see that, oh, well, now that she's gone and we don't have to worry about that, we can put her in. It's almost heartbreaking. Because despite all the negatives that have been the past decade or so in her life, her career was many, many more positives. And all I can say is, now that she's passed on, I'm not a religious person, but I do hope she finds peace in the afterlife. And all I can really hope is the minute she crossed on, Eddie Guerrero was there waiting for her to give her a big hug. Rest in peace, Chyna. I know in the past couple years she decided that Joni's not her name and she's officially Chyna. So rest in peace, Chyna. I'm sorry it had to come to this. And I do sincerely hope that you make it into the Hall of Fame this year.
All right, that was Will. He decided he was going to send in a pre-recorded thing about Chyna, and obviously the news is spread, and we all know what happened. I honestly kind of didn't want to have to talk about it, but like he said, it's kind of like the elephant in the room, and you kind of have to bring it up. And I'm not going to say a lot about it because for me, and as well as Marlena, it's one of those things that's really hard to talk about, not because of the instance of her passing away. It's just everything surrounding it. It's hard to talk about because there are so many people that will start bringing up so many shitty things. And quite honestly, there's a lot of stuff that went on in her life that it just kind of makes it hard to talk about it without sounding really insincere and hurtful to other people that may support and love her. And I mean, that doesn't mean that we don't support and love her, because she obviously was a huge part of our childhood. We loved her to death. She did such wonderful things for women wrestling and just the WWE in general. But for me, I think what bothers me the most about this entire situation is that almost immediately, as soon as the news hit, everybody was clamoring for the WWE to put her in the Hall of Fame. And to me, I think that's quite honestly the worst thing you could think of right out of the gate, because this woman has been battling addictions. She's been battling her demons. She, I guess, supposedly had been dealing with depression and anxiety, and she was on medication for that. And she struggled, and we don't know exactly what the cause of death was, and we can't sit there and say, you know, well, it was overdose, she purposely did it, it was suicide, blah, blah, blah. But the fact that this woman had to deal with so much, including mental disorders, that people don't take seriously, it bothers me right down to the very core that people were more concerned about her being honored in the WWE Hall of Fame rather than this whole thing surrounding mental illness and the stuff that comes with it. Because that's such a serious topic, especially coming from two people that have to deal with stuff that's like that. And I just, it bothers me that her legacy is more important than something as serious as mental illness. Because to me, the WWE fans are very quick to sit there and say that the WWE has never done anything for her, and they keep ousting her. They don't have her anywhere, all because she's not in the Hall of Fame. Well, it's very, very hard to put her in the Hall of Fame when she was alive, and Will touched down on that when he had his pre-recorded thing. And what really gets me and grates me is they act like she's never mentioned. But if you go back and you watch the Royal Rumble packages, she's constantly brought up. She was never ousted from anything about the Women's Revolution.